Hey, what's up? My name's Samuel Leeds. I'm a property investor, and in this video, I am going to be answering your property investment questions. So what do I need you to do right now? Please comment below in the video with your property investment questions. Why is this important? Here's the thing. I've been in property now for 12 years. I've done over 300 property investment deals. That's a deal, 300 times. Now, your first deal is your hardest, and I am desperate to see you do your first deal this year, 2021. So what's stopping you? What's holding you back? What little lack of knowledge do you need to have the gaps filled for you to be able to go and do that deal? I want to know. Comment below, let me know what questions you have, and then I'm going to answer your questions best I can. So do me a favor before you start commenting as well, smash the like button, also subscribe and turn on the notification bell. So let's see what questions that we've got from last week. We've got Robert M. He says, "Hi Samuel, great videos. I'm looking at rent to rents. I'm curious, would it still be profitable if doing this with houses and then renting them out as a single let? Would this be silly or just too risky managing voids?" Great question, Robert. Now, just if anyone's thinking that they don't quite understand the question, I think what Robert's saying is, rent to rent is when you rent a property, you have a management agreement where you're paying a monthly fee to that property, usually a reduced amount, and then you put tenants in for a much higher amount, and then the difference minus costs is your monthly profit. This is a way of generating monthly cash flow from a property without even owning it. It's called rent to rent. Now, usually when you do this, you're going to want to add value to the property, even if you don't do anything to the property, just by changing its use. So if you rent a property, but then you change its use, for example, you rent it as a single let, but then you list it on Airbnb. Oh my goodness, really good time to do that right now, by the way, with staycations going crazy. Then you're going to push the value up. You're going to get a lot more rent and you're going to make a lot more profit. So what Robert's saying is, could you just offer a reduced rent and then put in a tenant and just make maybe £100 or £200 a month? You could do it. I've known people do that. JL Spooner, one of my first ever students, she did that successfully for a couple of years and made a little bit of money each month. I personally wouldn't recommend taking on a rent to rent unless you're expected to be making a profit of £500 per month. Because that way, like you said, if you've got a void or a problem, you've got unexpected maintenance, you've got a little bit of buffer. Whereas if you're just expecting to pay £100 or £200, it doesn't really leave you with much profit. So you've got a little bit of reward, but you've still got risk. So you just want to manage that risk-reward ratio. I hope that helps. Robert, good luck with all you are doing. We've got next question has come from a guy called Daz Gov. Daz Gov, great to have you on the channel, man. I appreciate you being a subscriber. Daz says, "Hi Samuel, thank you always educating us. Which courses of yours or any others would you recommend that teaches or demonstrates negotiation?" Negotiation! Okay, so all of my training programs will teach negotiation. I think pretty much all of them. If it's a course on joint ventures, I'm going to teach you how to negotiate a joint venture deal. If it's lease option, how to negotiate lease option, or how to negotiate in deal selling with investors. So every strategy, you are going to have slightly different way of negotiating. However, the biggest negotiation tip I can say is 5 words. Be prepared to walk away. That's the biggest thing I'll say. So whether you're a deal sourcer and you're trying to sell to investors, if you're trying to sell a deal to an investor, but you're desperate for the investor to buy the deal because you've got no other investors, you're not in a strong position to negotiate. Whereas if you're trying to sell a deal to an investor and you've got another 15 investors that want to have a conversation with you, if this dude doesn't want the deal, then great, you're in a really strong position. You're happy to walk away. Hey, Mr. Investor, I don't have to sell the deal to you. I got another 15 people that want to speak to me. So how can we make this work? What do you want to do? Like, strong position. Same with lease option agreements. If you're trying to secure a lease option agreement, I just actually had a message from JL Spooner. JL Spooner, my first ever student who I mentioned, literally just messaged me 10 minutes prior to this Q&A, this filming on this Q&A Sunday. It's actually my here we go. So she said to me, she showed me a picture of some keys, right? And I'm like, I know what that means. I'm pretty sure that's the lease option agreement she's been working on. So I responded with a voice note. OMG, that's not the lease option agreement. Tell me it is, tell me.
It is. I'm super excited. Everything is signed. Keys are in my hand. Let me know when you're free.
All right, so she wants to chat. Why does she want to chat? She wants to chat to celebrate. Okay, massive part of success. Celebrate your success. But how does she negotiate that deal? Well, she was negotiating back and forth. Okay, and she kept messaging me. We were chatting. And Jaya was saying, the seller's saying they want this and they want this and they want that. And I said to Jaya, hold on. Have you got any other deals in the pipeline? She said, not lease options. I said, don't worry about this deal right now. I said, tell the seller what your offer is, tell them the terms, and go and find another few deals. Because you need to fill your pipeline. Because when you've got other stuff in the bag or in the pipeline, you're in such a stronger position. And even if it falls through, if the seller doesn't go ahead or they don't like your offer and they're being unreasonable, you can say, that doesn't work for me. I'm prepared to what? I'm prepared to walk away. You really are prepared to walk away. But when you're prepared to walk away, you often don't walk away. You often get the deal like JL did. So I'm gonna bring her straight after this. Maybe drive around to see the house. Apparently she told me she's gonna be making £3,000 a month profit on that deal. Like cash flow and capital appreciation. I mean, it's crazy. And a lease option agreement, you don't even need to put down a deposit. Crazy. Okay, by the way, if you're liking the video, hit the like button. Don't forget to drop your question. And when you drop your question below, don't just ask a question and then leave YouTube and forget you asked it. You want to ask the question, then subscribe and turn on the notification bell. That way, when I respond and you see a Q&A Sunday, you'll be able to watch it and hear my answer to your question. Okay, so Soraya Santos, do you recommend an interest-only or repayment mortgage for residential property? Appreciate the content. Okay, so this is something that you have to make the call. I, myself, much prefer buying a house and paying the minimum interest on the house. Why? Why don't I want to pay the mortgage off? Because that's something that most people in their minds, they think, pay off the mortgage as quick as possible. I'm gonna need a repayment mortgage to pay it off. I don't want to pay it off. I like debt, as long as it's good debt. So if I've got a buy-to-let property and I've borrowed money from the bank, but the tenant is paying the interest payments and me money, then why would I want to pay that mortgage off? You know, I want to die with debt. High net worth individuals are usually also high debt worth individuals. So if I've got good debt, I'm not rushing to pay it off. And what am I going to do with it instead? So the money, okay, so if you've got, say you've got a repayment mortgage, you're paying £1,000 a month. You're paying £500 a month interest, £500 a month on repaying off the debt. You're paying £1,000 a month on this one house. And let's say the rent is £1,200. So you've got £200 left, but that's going to go on other stuff. So that property is going to make you no money. But you're paying off the debt slowly so that in 30 years' time or whenever, you'll own it outright. You could do that, or you could keep that £500 back, not pay off the debt, save it until it gets to 25 grand or something, and then use it to buy another property. And then do the same thing again and use it to buy another property. And you're going to end up with a bunch of properties with mortgages on them rather than one paid off. I'd rather a bunch of properties with mortgages on them than one property paid off. Why? Because a bunch of properties means more cash flow, which pays for my life. And if you've got lots of houses, when they go up in value, which they always do over time, give it long enough, when they go up in value, you're benefiting from multiple capital appreciations like Monopoly. So that's what I prefer, repayments. Okay, Dean Kallick. By the way, if someone asks a question and I answer, and then it kind of shoots another question into your mind, just go ahead and ask it. Ask away in the comment box. That's what it's for. It's called the question box today. Hi Samuel, what should I do to avoid bad non-paying tenants? Dean, to avoid bad non-paying tenants, few things. Number one, buy in an area whereby it's not filled with bad non-paying tenants. If you buy a house in the middle of a red light district and there's, Benefit Street galore, broken glass, really high crime rate, yeah. Somewhere like, let's say in Liverpool, not that Liverpool's like that, I love Liverpool, but if you were going to buy in certain parts of Liverpool, certain parts of like Bootle, you can buy houses for like 50 grand, but would you want to? Because you'd be left with, how are you going to put a decent working tenant in a property like that? It's going to be, you might on paper think, I've got a really good return on investment. I'll buy it for 50 grand and I'll rent it out for £500 a month. But you're going to attract the kind of tenants that are going to break the windows, not pay their rent. This isn't me being stereotypical. This is me going off statistics. I'm going off the crime rate in the area. It's not being judgmental. People get all upset. It's like, it's more expensive to have car insurance if you had a crash previously. Is that being judgmental? No! Statistically, you're more likely to have a crash again. In fact, it's more expensive to be a young man than a young woman. Is that sexist? It's not sexist, it's statistically true. Proven. And in the same way, there's certain areas whereby it's statistically proven that you're going to have problems. So you got to factor in those problem costs, and then suddenly your return on investment doesn't look so attractive. So what's my point? How to avoid bad tenants, you asked? Well, maybe, no, I wouldn't say go to really fancy neighborhoods, because then you're going to have really expensive houses and the rents are going to be similar. So you want to go to areas that have got decent people, working area. If a 1 is drug lords and prostitutes everywhere, and a 10 is where I live, in Beaconsfield, beautiful, mansions everywhere, you probably want to be going towards like a 3 or a 4. So that's area. Second thing is you want to choose your tenants well, vet them well. Vet them, get references, get previous landlord references. If they haven't got a good source of income because they're first-time renters or something like that, then maybe ask their parents to be a guarantor. There's lots of things you can do. All right, next. I hope that helps. Norbert Farkas. Hi, Samuel. Question. Are you paying attention to the fact that the property that you buy is leasehold or freehold? Does it even matter? Yeah, it matters a lot. So you'll see it. If it's a leasehold property, they should specify that on, the estate agent or the seller should tell you that up front. If they don't, it will get picked up when you're buying it from the solicitors. But if it's an on-market deal on Rightmove, it will say leasehold or freehold. You can also check on land registry and things like that for free. Okay. Let me tell you the difference. Leasehold, you don't own the land. So if you're buying a house on land that you don't own, does that mean that the landowner could just say, I want the land back, and then you'd be left with a house that you couldn't access? It does mean that, which is terrible. However, when you buy a property that's leasehold, you'll have a certain length lease when you buy it. So it might be, you've got a 100-year lease, and you're going to pay £100 a year to lease the land, and then you're going to buy the property. So you might think, oh, well, what does it matter? And it doesn't matter that much. It will sell for cheaper. It might be a little bit harder to sell, but if you've got access to the land for 100 years, you're going to be dead, right? So who cares? It doesn't really matter. But if the lease is short, like 20, 30 years, then you've got to think, well, actually, number one, it's going to be a nightmare to sell, because if I buy it and try and sell, no one wants a short lease. But secondly, when the lease runs out, what are you gonna do? So generally I stick with freehold. If you're buying a flat, an apartment in England, it will always be leasehold, because if you're buying an apartment in a block, you don't own the block or the land, you own the apartment. So you're leasing the rest, and that's why you'll pay a service charge, a ground rent for the land, for the actual communal areas, for the building, but you're buying the apartment itself. In Scotland, flats are freehold. It's a little bit different, but yeah, so do take note of leasehold versus freehold. Tandakazi says, I would like to know, sir, when you joint venture with the contractor and you have secured the piece of land cash, do you joint venture 50-50 provided they will build and only, or they do all the other expenses and architecture fees, structural, etc.? Please explain who pays for what in the joint venture. Okay, so Tandokazi, joint ventures are a blank piece of paper. It's whatever you agree with the other party. You're talking about a land, so if you're doing a joint venture with the owner of the land, like Lawton did on the Financial Freedom Challenge, which by the way is going really, really well. But if you're coming across a landowner and the person that owns the land, you're saying, hey, look, how about we'll build on the land? You're not ever going to own, well, you're going to keep it in their name, aren't you? So the land is going to stay in their name. You're going to have a joint venture agreement that says that you're going to get planning permission, you're going to build, you're going to sell, and then you're going to have an agreed price when you sell for the land that will go to them, and then the profits from everything else, you'll split 50-50. So who's going to pay for all the bits and bobs depends on what you agree. Absolutely depends on what you agree. A joint venture is a complete blank piece of paper. There's no right or wrong. This is where negotiation comes in. You're going to negotiate whatever you can do. But if I'm putting in all of the, the expertise, the build, and all that, I mean, for a start, you're probably going to get development finance to actually do the build. So you're going to borrow the money, and you're going to borrow the money against what? Against the land. So if the land is unencumbered, meaning there's no existing loans or charges against the land, you're just going to take the land, joint venture, great, it's in their name, and then you're going to advise your joint venture partner that you're going to be getting a development finance loan. There'll be a charge on the land, which is going to pay for the entire build. In terms of who's going to pay for the professional fees, it's whatever you work out. Okay, last question. I hope you're enjoying this video, by the way. Every Sunday I do this. I've been doing this, I don't know how long now. Maybe a year, 2 years. If you enjoy it, hit the like button. Connor says, hope you're well. How much roughly is needed to set up a fully compliant deal sourcing business? Connor, to set up a fully compliant deal sourcing business, probably about £1,500. Depends what you're including in the business. If you're including a website and business cards and logo designer, it just depends how much you pay. But the absolute necessity is maybe about £1,500, but I wouldn't do it. You don't need to pay anything to start a deal sourcing business. And we teach this on the Deal Selling Masterclass. To start with, I'd find deals, find other existing deal sourcing companies. I'd say, hey, I got some deals. Do you want to sell them to your investors through your insurance to your list using your fancy logo? I'll just bring the deal and we can split the profit somehow. And then do that a couple times and then use that money to then set up your business. That way there's no money down. I mean, I got a lot of businesses, I got a lot of properties, I've created a lot of wealth, and every one of my businesses has been started with no money. People think you need a lot of money to start a business. I'll go to the bank and I'll get a business loan to start my business. You don't need to do that. You don't need money to start a business. You don't need money to start a property business. What you need is you need creativity, you need a network, you need knowledge, you need courage, a lot of stuff, but you don't need money. I hope that helps. Thank you so much for watching. Drop your questions in the question box below, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Hit the like button, subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.